Hello. I have finally finished Arnold Bennett's The Old Wives' Tale. It took me a very long time. I'm obsessed with the list, the Modern Library's 20th Century 100 Best English Written Novels of the 20th Century. I've read 94 of the titles on the list. Having read this one, I've read 95. What is this very long novel about? It is the story of two sisters, Constance and Sophia. Essentially, that is all. That is the entire novel. We begin with these two young teenage girls. We see them looking out from their window at the small village where they live. Their father is a shopkeeper. They are doing well, and they know that it is their duty to one day go into the shop and into the family business. The novel is divided up into 4 books, and the first book is called Mrs. Baines. And that is the mother of the two young girls. And even though the title of the chapter is Mrs. Baines, it is not so much about the mother of these two daughters. The entire novel is always focused on the two sisters. And at first they are quite young. There are some small domestic troubles in the family that Constance is more of the stable, does what the family expects of her. What is that? Dutiful, perhaps? And Sophia is more headstrong and she wants to do what she wants. She decides that she wants to be a teacher, and her parents are very much against this. Being a teacher it's a job for spinsters or the daughter who never got married, and they think that their daughter is better than that she will go into the shop and she will not be one of those teachers. They're looked down upon for some reason. So that is the beginning. That is the first book. And the second book is called Constance, and that deals with that sister, and as she grows up and she gets married and she has a family, the trials and tribulations of her life. Book 3 is called Sophia. I don't want to tell you too much about Sophia's story because it is quite exciting. It is the best part of the book, to be frank. I can say that she gets married. That is not giving too much away. However, I think I just need to leave it there. But her trials and tribulations, which are extreme, compared to her sister, are they more? Well, yes. Sophia's life is a lot more tumultuous than her sister Constance's life. The final book, book 4, is What Life Is. How can I tell you about book 4 without giving away anything significant from the plot that might spoil it for you? I'll just say this. The sisters are reunited after some time. They are older, and it is the story of their coming together and coming to terms once again with their relationship. I want to talk a little bit about Arnold Bennett. I don't think I ever would have heard of The Old Wives' Tale had not I been obsessed with that list of novels. And even finding an edition, used edition because I'm poor, even finding a used edition was really not very easy. I had to scour the used bookstores. Eventually I found it. There's a ridiculous used bookstore in Vancouver. It's called McLeod's Books. So let me tell you a bit about Arnold Bennett. Arnold Bennett, 1867 to 1931, was an English author best known as a novelist. He wrote prolifically. Between the 1890s and the 1930s, he completed 34 novels. 7 volumes of short stories, 13 plays, and a daily journal totaling more than 1 million words. He wrote articles and stories for more than 100 newspapers and periodicals, worked in and briefly ran the Ministry of Information in the First World War, and wrote for the cinema in the 1920s. The sales of his books were substantial, and he was the most financially successful British author of his day. The thing that I most enjoyed about this character, the very final note on his Wikipedia page, Arnold Bennett has the distinction of having a well-known dish named in his honor, an omelette. The Arnold Bennett omelette is one that incorporates smoked haddock, hard cheese, typically cheddar, and cream. Smoked haddock. It would be quite strong, but I think it would also be quite delicious. It was created at the Savoy Grill in London for Bennett, who is an habitué. It means somebody who goes there quite often. It remains a British classic. Cooks from da-da-da-da-da and Gordon Ramsay have published their recipes for it, and a variant remains on the menu at the Savoy Grill. That is a mark of an artist. You know, you might win the awards. There are a lot of awards to win in this affluent age of ours. But to have an omelette named in your honor, God, I would be proud. I would be proud of that. My opinion, first of all, the book is very long. And it is an old book. It was published in 1906, 1908. It's really an old piece of classic literature. You know, before everything got really modern and high speed and, you know, fast paced. This is the slow style. And often I was wondering while I was reading it if it perhaps was not serialized in the way that Charles Dickens's work was serialized, so that if you ever wonder why Charles Dickens wrote such big, fat, long books, it's because he was getting paid by the word. His novels appeared in chapter form in the newspapers of the day. And I was wondering if it was not the same with this, because it does take time to come round to the thrust, the crisis, the dilemma. It takes such a long while. I don't mind that. I have a great deal of patience for literature, and I think there is something very beautiful to be discovered in long novels. It is a journey. This novel is quite meandering. The beautiful thing about long novels is that the emotions are growing substantially, and when those scenes and episodes happen, they really do, they hit with a very strong emotional impact. There were several moments in this novel that, you know, I was quite overcome with the emotions of the scene. Beautifully written and nothing extraordinary, like no typhoons or earthquakes or car accidents. It was just the very simple trauma, hardships of normal human life. You're going to have to read this novel quite patiently. I did not like this novel at first because I was trying to read it while I was on the public transportation. I would try to read it for a couple of minutes on the bus, and I would try to read it for a couple of minutes on the SkyTrain, and it wasn't working like that, and it was very frustrating because it just felt so tedious. I reverted to my old method of reading where I said, okay, 50 pages a day. It's a really long novel. 50 pages a day is the only way I'm going to get this thing read. And so I was here on the sofa, and when I read the novel that way, quite patiently, quite sedulously is the correct word, then the book really began to come alive, because that is how you have to read this book. Okay, not you, but me. That is how I had to read this book. I had to sit down patiently and with a great deal of concentration, read 50 pages. And then the book became beautiful. It became extraordinary. The characters were so vibrant. I was so amazed at, what is relatively a very simple tale. There is the life of these two sisters. This one does this and the other one does that. I'm sorry, I can't give it away. I would like to give it away because I'm very doubtful about how many people will read this novel. But that's my way. That's my little rule. Don't give too much away. Don't spoil the book for anyone out there who might read this. And I do recommend this book very much. I really do, because it is masterfully written. However, that meandering method did get to me quite strongly at one point in the book, and I'm going to read it to you. Here we are on page 471. So quite a lot has happened. More than 2/3 of the way through the novel, we get this paragraph. So there are two gentlemen having a conversation. They have a horse-drawn carriage because it's not in the time of automobiles yet. So they have this cabman. The taxis of the day were horse-drawn carriages. The cabman approvingly watched the ignition of the second cigarette, and then the cabman pulled out a cigar and showed his large white teeth as he bit the end off. The appearance and manner of his fare, the quality of the kit bag, and the opening gestures of the interview between the two young dukes had put the cabman in an optimistic mood. He had no apprehensions of miserly and ungentlemanly conduct by his fare upon the arrival at Euston. He knew the language of the tilt of the straw hat, and it was a magnificent day in London. The group of the two elegances, dominated by the perfection of the cabman, made a striking tableau of triumphant masculinity, content with itself and needing nothing. God damn it. I read 471 pages, and that paragraph was necessary. That little, what the hell is it? Tangential? What's the word when something's way, way outside what is needed? Because it does take quite a lot of reading and concentration to come round to that drama. We do await the final drama, don't we? We await that climax. In literature, the climax, well, it's not like a Hollywood film. Even the most educated and intellectual reader, I think, looks at the book and says, all right, 20, 30 more pages left and I've got this one. And even though you might be reading very intellectually, there is that anticipation of coming to the end, right? So when I came to that paragraph and it was just so, man, you are putting socks on top of socks. It made me a bit mental. So that is The Old Wives' Tale by Arnold Bennett. Who should give it a try? I think this book is for the older generation. I don't think this is a book, that's gonna catch fire with the under 20s or the under 30s. It's a long, slow read with very slow building tension, gently comes to a climax. I can do it, I have the patience for it, and when it's written as well as that, yeah, I'll read it. And I'm quite happy to read it. I'm very pleased to have read that. And when you go back and you read the older stuff, it makes you think about the progression of literature, how all of a sudden everything changed in the 1920s and everything got really quite exciting and dynamic, and then things changed quite again in, the 1970s, 1980s. If you are an older type, or you're a very patient type, or you're just someone who is really quite ready to read 600 pages about the beautiful lives of these two women who are sisters, the amazingly different lives that they have. When I was sitting down and I was doing the 50 pages a day, there was nothing better. This book was wonderful. When I was trying to read it here and there on the train, on the bus, it didn't do anything for me at all. And that was me. That was my concentration. That was not the novel in any way. My university studies always makes making the YouTube, finding the time to make the YouTube videos a bit difficult. So thank you very much if you are bearing with me and enjoying the videos. I appreciate it. I do appreciate everyone's support. Just watching the videos, giving me the like, leaving the comments. I'm always happy to read those. Have a great goddamn day. Grant Shipway omelette. What is in that? Anchovies, spinach, something Hungarian, teve paprika, something bitter because that's me. Maybe an infusion of bergamot tea. Some lemon bergamot infusion. God, that kind of sounds good, doesn't it?